It was supposed to be a simple jump, one cargo hauler, 2 tug drones, and a captain with a calendar full of deadlines. The convoy drifted at the edge of the helix corridor, nose to nothing, staring at the most temperamental shortcut in the quadrant. Wormhole H17, helix gate, mile marker 0. The gate looked like it always did, an inky iris hanging in space, embroidery of cold starlight stitched around a dark pupil. Every few minutes the pupil tightened and relaxed, breathing, like a cat pretending to sleep. That was the problem with H17. It wasn't broken, it was mood-based. Captain Pell turned down the cabin lights, as though the wormhole might be shy. "Helm, bring us to the courtesy line. 20 kilometers, let's not spook it." Her helmsman, Keo, ran a hand back through his hair and the ship complied, sliding to a respectful stop where a polite civilization might install a velvet rope. Amani keyed the ship wide. "All right, protocol, we hail, we're respectful, we do not use the word temperamental out loud." From engineering, Chief Doshi's voice crackled in. "If I can't say temperamental, I will say fickle, Chief. Fine. Capricious." "Mute engineering," Amani said. The ship obliged with a soft chime. She squared up to the comm pickup. "Helix Gate H17, this is the commercial vessel parcel theory requesting transit under ordinary commerce license. Cargo. Non-perishables and 1 crate of extremely perishable pastries for Dock 6. She paused. "Your pupils look particularly symmetrical today." "A beat." Then the wormhole answered, its voice not from the speakers but from the hull itself, a resonant hum sliding into words. "Captain Pell," it said, tone like velvet catching on a splinter. "Your last transit review rated me 4 out of 5. I am not a 4. Keo winced. "Oh no, it remembers." Amani closed her eyes. Of course it remembered. The helix corridor wormholes were old, unionized, and frightfully online. "You were wonderful," she said evenly. The turbulent spike near the exit knocked a point. "Purely on comfort." "I am a gateway to elsewhere," H17 replied. "Not a spa." "Understood. We're on a schedule." She leaned toward the mic. "And may I say, your event horizon looks exceptionally crisp." Silence. If a wormhole could preen, H17 would be doing it. Then, "Flatterer, present your compliment in triplicate." Amani piped engineering back in. "Chief, the compliment form?" Doshi muttered, "Form 17B compliments, non-binding." "1 sec." A pause. "Found it, printing in the mess, because the bridge printer is full of granola bar wrappers." Again. Keo shrugged. "Protein is protein." They waited. The forms arrived in a courier drone, fresh with toaster warm paper smell. Amani signed exceptionally crisp, initialed tastefully arranged throat of night, and, because experience had taught her to overdeliver, checked the box that read affirm cosmic purpose and wrote your work matters. She held the pages up to the external camera. The wormhole tasted the compliment with a ripple in its dark, then grumbled, "Better." "Now the haiku." Amani glanced at Keo. "Do you remember the syllable count?" 575, he said, deadpan. "But it prefers slant rhyme. Compliment with a hint of melancholy." Amani cleared her throat. "Black ring, patient mouth. Even gravity waits here." "We ask, you decide." The ship shivered, not from thrust, but from approval. H17's horizon brightened, a soft halo the color of deep water teal. "Acceptable," it said. "Proceed to praise checkpoint B." Keo stared. "There's a B now?" "New union contract," Doshi said in her ear. "Wormholes negotiated for emotional labor acknowledgement. If you don't sign the we see you clause, they sulk." Amani rubbed her temple. Of course they did. She signed we see you, attached a digital fruit basket, and cleared her throat again. "Helix Gate H17, as always, transit depends on your grace," the wormhole finished, because it liked the word and insisted on saying it. The iris dilated. The corridor beyond unfurled like a flag in windless space. Keo nudged thrust, and parcel theory slid forward, convoy obedient behind. They were 2 kilometers from the throat when the wormhole spoke again, small and wounded. "The ship behind you referred to me as a cosmic faucet." Amani checked the convoy list. The second tug, always a minute, had a reputation for mouthiness. She tapped the convoy channel. All ships. Language, we are guests. A laconic voice came back. It's a faucet, Cap. We turn, it runs. H-17's voice dropped a register. I do not run. Amani jumped in. Apologies for our colleague, he is uncultivated. Uncultivated, Keo mouthed. Ouch. The wormhole's horizon dimmed to offended gray. Compliment, now, or I close. Amani looked at the clock. The pastries had 35 minutes before they became a scientific curiosity. Okay, she said, palms up, as if the wormhole could see the gesture. No scripts. From the heart. Captain, Keo warned. She stared at the ring, a dark pupil in a bright eye, and said, honestly, you are necessary. Not in the abstract, not in the poetry. Necessary like bridges, like plumbing, like the first hand that pulls the next person up. You shorten the distance between people who don't get to pick how far apart they were born. The hum along the hull softened. For a moment, the crew could hear the faintest sound, like rain on a roof remembered from childhood. Proceed, H-17 whispered, and the corridor opened the rest of the way, a throat of night saying fine. For you. The convoy slipped inside. Wormhole transits aren't travel, not exactly. They're a surrender, letting a geometry older than complaint take your ship into its jaw and spit you, hopefully intact, into a map's other corner. The lights dimmed to preserve night vision. The exterior cameras painted the hull with the corridor's impossible color, blue that tasted like brass, purple that smelled like old paperbacks. Amani kept her voice steady. Maintain interval spacing, no one touch anything. Keo's hands hovered over the thrusters like a pianist at rest. You think it bought the speech? It heard it, Amani said. That's enough. They emerged in a velvet emptiness dotted by Doc 6's beacon. Behind them, always a minute popped out sideways, offended by physics and life. Keo exhaled. H-17 behaved. Never say that out loud, Doshi said. You're going to jinx us for the return. Amani checked the pastry timer. Doc 6, this is parcel theory. Approach request with 1 crate of fragile time-sensitive joy. A harried controller's voice answered. Bring her in, and, be advised, your departure window is through H-17 as well. Maintenance on H-19, you've got 70 minutes to turn and burn if you want the corridor with the good turbulence. Amani swallowed a sigh. Copy. We'll be quick. Doc 6 was one of those stations that always smelled like roasted coffee and last-minute regret. Cargo slings whirred, forklifts glided, somewhere someone yelled left. And everyone went right. Amani signed for the pastries, signed again because someone had printed the form twice, and signed a third time because the robot loved a pattern. On the way back to the ship, a bulletin pinged her wrist. Wormhole Union 23 status update. Helix Gate H-17 is in low morale following multiple incidents of disrespectful language. Recommended. Compliments, snacks, laminated affirmation cards. Avoid, faucet, hole, cosmic drain, and pop through. Amani showed it to Keo. He grimaced. Affirmation cards? Print some, she said. Keo typed as they walked, muttering. I am more than a shortcut. My boundaries matter. Let's not discuss my curvature unless invited. I am not a traffic circle, Doshi said over comms. Last time someone called it that, it spat them into a gift shop. They hurried the load sequence, strapped down the empty pastry container, sticky, fragrant, haunted by cinnamon, and spun the ship. H-17 waited, sulking black, a pupil turned to a period. Amani opened the channel. Helix Gate H-17, this is parcel theory requesting return transit. We have affirmation cards. Read one, the wormhole said, flat. Keo obliged. You are not a traffic circle. Another. Your event horizon is a boundary, not an invitation. Another. You do not have to open for anyone who doesn't respect you. H-17 considered this. Acceptable. What else do you bring? Pastry crumbs, Doshi said. Cinnamon flavored. I do not eat. Offer stands, Amani said. A pause. The horizon brightened, then dimmed like a shrug. Proceed to praise checkpoint A. There was no A on the forms. Amani frowned. H17, we have B, we have C. A, the wormhole said. And, a revision to procedure. New clause. Amani's stomach sank. What clause? You must convince the disrespectful ship to apologize. Its voice was serene now, the way a cat's is serene while setting down a live mouse. In specific language, I accept only sincerity. You have 15 minutes. Kyo glanced at the clock. We'll miss the nice turbulence. Amani closed her eyes for a beat and pictured her calendar becoming a bonfire. Copy. Give us the language. H17 recited, and the ship dutifully recorded. I acknowledge the wormhole's labor, the invisible strain of dividing distance, and the dignity of choosing to open. I will not compare you to plumbing, doors, faucets, drains, or the preamble to a sandwich. Preamble to a, Kyo whispered. Ask later, Amani said, and hailed always a minute on a private channel. The captain, Myers, answered amid the sound of someone eating crisps with missionary zeal. What? Amani kept her tone even. H17 won't open unless you apologize. Specific language incoming. It's not optional. Myers snorted. Are you joking? No, Amani said. We're in the corridor's emotional ecosystem now. Captain, Myers began, in the voice of a man who wears socks with sandals on purpose. It's a hole in space. And you're a man in space, Amani said, and I still say good morning. Silence. Then, send the script. She did. There was a rattle of paper, some muttering, and the sound of crisps being set down with ceremonial offense. Myers came back, stagey. I acknowledge the wormholes. Meaning it, H17 said, voice sliding into their hull like a spoon into a mouth. Mean it. Myers sighed the long sigh of a person who has accidentally learned a lesson. He tried again, less theater, more throat. I acknowledge your work. It looks easy from here. I know it is not. His voice steadied, surprised at itself. Thank you for opening where there's no reason you have to. I won't call you a faucet again. You're, not a tool. Please, open? The horizon brightened, not teal this time but a color the mind categorized simply as finally. Proceed, H17 said softly. They slid in. Halfway through, turbulence tickled the hull, nothing dangerous, a rough pat on the back. Amani glanced at Kyo. That apology sounded real. I think he scared himself, Kyo said, by telling the truth. About the crisps? About labor, Kyo said. They emerged to the familiar sight of Dock 5's anchor stars. The convoy scattered, each ship nudging toward its own small obligations, and parcel theory drifted on reaction wheels, quiet in the way that always felt like a held breath. Amani was reaching for the log to rate the transit, 5, obviously, with a note about the turbulence that felt more like punctuation than fault, when H17 spoke again. Captain Pell. Yes? Your compliment earlier? The one that wasn't on a form. Amani blinked. Yes. It was seen, the wormhole said. Amani smiled without showing it to anyone. Then let me add one more. The cosmos is large, and most of it is indifferent. You are not, thank you. H17 made a sound like a coin dropped into a well and hitting water a long way down. You are welcome. The channel closed. They expected that to be the end of it, a story to tell at bars, a note in the corridor's folklore. It was not. The Helix corridor is a small town with longer streets. 3 days later, traffic control pinged parcel theory with a community mediation request. Doshi forwarded it to the bridge with a skull emoji. We've been drafted. Amani opened the request. It was from Wormhole Union 23 and Helix Corridor Logistics, co-signed, a miracle in itself. They wanted parcel theory to serve as a neutral party in a listening session. The subject: language, labor, and transit, i.e., how not to anger the holes you need. Do we get paid? Kyo asked. Doshi answered, in fewer delays. Amani ran a tongue along her teeth. She'd been a captain long enough to know that fewer delays was a currency you put in a lockbox. They docked at a platform that looked like a conference room, fell in love with a planetarium. Chairs, and chair-adjacent things, filled the central arc. On one side, captains, quartermasters, 3 admiralty officers, 3 dozen petty officers, a smattering of merchants who had perfected the art of looking both busy and innocent. On the other, a ring of microphones facing a screen of dark glass. Behind it, the faintest suggestion of a pupil, age 17, present but not on stage, because eyes can be shy. A facilitator in a soft sweater welcomed everyone and put up a slide titled "Words That Hurt, Words That Help." It was an aggressively gentle color. Amani felt her throat do that complicated thing where laughter shows up dressed as a cough. Kyo sat very straight. The facilitator cleared their throat. "We'll begin with testimonies. Remember, we're not here to litigate the past, but to learn how to move through each other's orbits kindly." The first speaker was a miner with hands like quarried stone. He stepped to the mic and said, "We call it a faucet because it's easy to fix what's simple and hard to repent what isn't. I can fix a faucet. I can't fix a universe. But I can say, I'm grateful." H-17's pupil dilated a hair. Next, an admiral in the crisp grief of uniform. "We schedule fleets. The schedules get larger. Our language got small. Slots and windows and push now. Somewhere in there we mislaid the fact that we ask. So, we ask." Myers, of always a minute, shuffled up, crisps resolutely absent. "I said faucet. I meant habit. I meant, I didn't want to think. I meant, thank you." He looked down, then up at the black glass. "I was wrong." The pupil softened. Amani didn't plan to speak. She was a person who preferred doing the job to narrating it. But she found herself at the mic anyway, the way you find yourself sending a message you swore you'd draft and never send. "I like forms," she said, and got a laugh. "I like rules. They take some of the arbitrariness out of being alive. But sometimes the form makes you forget what you filled it out for." She turned to the glass. "We complimented you because the contract said so. That wasn't wrong. It just wasn't enough. So here's the more, you're spectacular. Not as fireworks or fountains are spectacular. As bridges are. People are better in the presence of bridges." Silence. Then the tiniest voice, as if piped through a library. "Thank you." The facilitator beamed like a parent at a recital where no one fell. They made a short list together: captains and holes, words to retire, words to try. Retire faucet, drain, valve, mouth, too biological, H-17 noted, which caused 3 engineers to cross out jokes. Try gate, bridge, corridor, keeper. Keep grace. Allow throat only if pronounced with ah. They also hammered out a practice. Each convoy would designate a compliment officer whose job was not to flatter but to notice. The job came with no pay, a badge, and, because the union insisted, a break schedule. As they filed out, Amani felt an odd lightness, a balancing of the ledger. Not solved, not shipped, just a moment where the universe, famously indifferent, had rearranged itself into a circle of chairs and everyone had used their inside voices. It felt like a prank pulled kindly on the abyss. On the way back to the ship, Kyo nudged her. "You know that means you're our compliment officer now." "Absolutely not," she said. "Doshi is." Doshi's voice crackled in. "I compliment with the specificity of a ledger. Prepare to be affirmed on the quarter hour." Back aboard, they drifted at the courtesy line. The iris waited, unblinking. Amani opened the channel. "Helix Gate H-17, this is parcel theory. We'd like to request transit under Commerce Standard." A thoughtful hum. "Captain Pell, did you bring the cards? Laminate and everything?" She nodded at Kyo, who held up. "My boundaries are beautiful like a hostage sign." The wormhole exhaled. "Proceed." They slid forward. The lights tipped, the hull sang. H-17's voice rode the resonance, almost shy. "Captain." "Yes? 5 out of 5 is not required?" Amani smiled. "Noted. Today's A5 anyway." A pleased quiet. "I am not a faucet," H-17 said, "for itself more than anyone." "No," Amani said, "you're a keeper." They passed through. Weeks later, a rumor spread down the corridor that H-17 had refused transit to a battle group that called it a traffic circle in a meeting. The battle group submitted a form, an apology, and a video of their entire staff saying keeper in imperfect unison. H-17 opened, not because of the choreography, but because of the imperfection. It liked people better when they didn't rehearse so hard. Parcel theory kept working, schedules stayed ragged, invoices still tried to escape envelopes. But transit smoothed, not because physics got gentler, but because everyone stopped pretending the dark wasn't listening. One night, adrift in a patch of black without adjective, Amani stood at the viewport with a mug of ship coffee, tasting slightly of hot plastic and duty. The stars were as they always were, extravagant and distant. "Captain," Kyo said quietly from behind her. "Why does it matter? The words?" Amani considered, "Because someone always decides what we're allowed to treat as a person. That line tends to move in the wrong direction unless you argue with it on purpose." He nodded, filed that away the way people file away a sentence that will be useful later, and returned to his station. The ship exhaled. Somewhere in the metal, an old song of strain eased a note. They hailed the next gate. It answered, as gates do when you remember they could choose not to. "Helix Gate H-19, Amani said, your horizon looks exceptionally crisp," the gate replied, amused. "We talk to each other, you know." Amani blinked. "You gossip?" "Of course." Kyo grinned at her over his shoulder. "We're famous." "Don't get used to it," Doshi said. "Fame is a turbulent spike waiting to happen." They slid into the corridor, and the color tasted like brass again, and then like new rain, even though neither made sense, which is how you know you're alive. The log asked for a rating. Amani left it blank, not because the transit didn't deserve 5, but because the form could wait, and the noticing couldn't. She watched the horizon lengthen and thought of bridges, throats, keepers, of anyone who makes it possible for someone else to arrive. "Helm," she said softly, "mind the grace." Kyo's hands floated over the controls like a promise. "Always." And the gate opened, because sometimes the right word is a key and sometimes it's just a courtesy, and either way, it's good practice. And that was the Grumpy Wormhole. Even shortcuts in space have their pride. If this story made you smile, don't forget to like the video, subscribe for more original sci-fi comedies, and tap the bell so you're here for the next cosmic misadventure. Until then, remember, be nice to the bridges you cross. They might be listening.